Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first day of the flipped classroom. So before we begin, I'd like you to please take out a pencil, your spiral notebook, and then a scratch piece of paper where you can solve a few problems on it. We're going to be continuing on with today's lesson, 2.5 multiplying fractions. So you do not need to add to your table of contents. You can just turn to page 19 or 20 and continue your notes from there. So today we talked about multiplying decimals and whole numbers. We talked about not having to line up the decimal like you do in addition and subtraction. You just multiply like normal and then find how many decimal places there are in the numbers that you're multiplying. So we're going to be doing the same thing that we did earlier, except now we're going to be multiplying two decimals together. So our sample will be 4.8 times 7.2. So we're going to line our numbers up. 4.8, 7 times 2. And we will just multiply like we normally do. So 8 times 2 gives you 16. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 8 times 7 gives you 56. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 5 gives you 33. Then you would add. Now, it's important not to leave your number like this after you multiply. You need to go back in your original problem, see how many decimal places you had. So after the decimal, I have 1, 2. So since I have 2, I'm going to go back in my problem, start at the right-hand side, and move to the left 2 spaces. That shows me where my decimal should go. So my answer for this problem would be 34 and 56 hundredths, or 34.56. We're going to go ahead and look at one more problem. Problem looks like this: 3.1 times 0.05. Now notice in this problem I did not line my decimals up because when you're multiplying you do not need to do that. Okay, we'll multiply like normal. 5 times 1 gives me 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Since these are zeros, I would just add zeros below, so I don't need to continue my problem any further. I look back in my original problem, see how many decimal places I have. I have 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to start at the right-hand side and move to the left 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And that's where my decimal point goes. Go ahead and put your scratch piece of paper in front of you. I'm going to be giving you a problem that I'd like you to solve. Here we go. Your problem is 8.1 times 5.6. Go ahead and solve that on your scratch piece of paper. Pause the video, and once you've solved it, go ahead and unpause and listen for the answer. Okay, so for this problem, we're going to multiply just like we normally do. So 6 times 1 gives us 6. 8 times 6 is 48. We add our 0 in. 5 times 1 gives us 5, and 8 times 5 gives us 40. We add them up. Now we need to look back in our original problem, see how many decimal places we have. We have 1, 2. So we're going to start on the right-hand side and move our decimal over 2 places. 1, 2. So your answer would be 45 and 36 hundredths. Hopefully you got that correct. If you did not, we're going to go ahead and do one more problem. Okay, your next problem is going to be this: 6.32 times 0.09. Go ahead and pause the video and solve, and when you're ready, unpause. Now that you've solved the problem on your own, let's check back and make sure that you got it correct. So 9 times 2 will give us 18. Sorry, my marker's running low. 9 times 3 gives us 27, plus 1 gives us 28. 9 times 6 is 54, plus 2 is 56. Now I need to go back in my problem and see how many decimal places I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start on the right hand side and go over 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where my decimal belongs. Now that we've multiplied 2 decimals together, we're going to move on to our next sample problem. So please go back to your spiral notebook. This will be example number 4. And here is our problem. What is the value of 2 44/100 times 4.5 minus 3.175? Now for this problem, I want you to think about your order of operations. Please review that now if you don't remember. It is PEMDAS, so parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So looking at this problem, think about what we need to do first. The first thing I notice is the parentheses. So we're going to work with what's in our parentheses first. So we're subtracting. So let's remember what the most important thing about adding and subtracting decimals is. Line up those decimals. So 4.5 minus 3.175. In these empty spaces, I'm going to fill them in with zeros. And then I'm going to subtract just like I normally would. I'm going to go here. Okay, and the decimal drops right down. Oops. Notice 4 minus 1 actually gives me 3. Everybody makes mistakes, right? So now I'm going to take what's in my parentheses, and now I'm left with this. So when a number is right next to a parentheses, that is telling you that we need to multiply. So we're going to take our 2 numbers and multiply them together. Now with decimals, it doesn't matter which number's on the top and which number's on the bottom when you multiply. So I'm actually going to switch the order. Remember, for multiplication, we do not need to line up the decimals. Go ahead and pause your video and solve this problem now. Now that you've solved the problem, let's review how it's done. 5 times 4 gives me 20. 4 times 2 gives me 8 plus 2 gives me 10. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Then we have a 0 here. 5 times 4 is 20. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. 4 times 3 is 12. 13. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Now in our next one, we're going to have 2 zeros. 5 times 2 gives us 10. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 1 is 2. Then we're going to add these all together. 0, 0, 3, 13, 12, and 3. Now we're going to go back in our original multiplication problem. And we're going to look at how many decimal places we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to start on the right hand side, go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's where our decimal place belongs. Go ahead and copy this into your notebook if you have not already, and then have your scratch piece of paper in front of you to try one more problem. Alright, here's the sample problem I would like you to try. Please remember your order of operations as you solve the problem. Please pause the video until you have an answer. So in our order of operations, between addition and multiplication, we're going to be doing multiplication first. So I'm going to take my 8.2 times 1.9. Go ahead and multiply it out. We need to look back in our problem and see how many decimal places we have. 1, 2. So we're going to start at the right and go 1, 2. So now what I have left is 12 and 67/100ths plus 15 and 58/100ths. So I'm going to add. Remember, when we add, we do need to line up the decimals and add just like normal. Now that you've completed this problem, you are done with your lesson and your homework for tonight. I would like you to please put your spiral back in your binder. Please make sure that you bring it to class tomorrow. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in class. Bye.